friends and subscribers. This is China News for May 2013. What's going on in May in the Middle Kingdom? Well, demand for gold at record high again here. April into May, lots of gold purchasing. In the bar graph that you can see below, the orange being India, red being Greater China, and dark blue Europe and others. And we can see that China and India have combined for 62% of the global jewelry demand in precious metals, and that it will only grow as China purchases more and more gold and silver and other precious metals. Gold jewelry demand in China surged to a record quarterly value of 60.3 billion yuan, or $9.8 billion. And it's very robust, and demand is highest in Hong Kong. As I reported in a couple of videos, there has been a lot of smuggling of gold from Hong Kong into the mainland in order to either invest at a lower price as a hedge to inflation, or to sell bars and jewelry and make a quick profit. Very common in the Shenzhen, Hong Kong area to do that. It looks like the price drop is here for quite a while, and many speculating, including Jim Rickards, the author of Currency Wars, that it is an opportunity for China to come in and buy more gold. They're the number one producer of gold. They don't export it, and they're also the top importer of gold. So that combined tells you what they're trying to do. They're trying to back their currency by gold, and have been doing so for some time. So this means that the renminbi will be ready sooner than later to become a chief competitor internationally with the US dollar for the world reserve currency in as little as maybe 2 years, depending on how much gold that they have. But when the Chinese do finally announce how much gold that they do have, then we'll see gold prices go to those 2,000 and up range that we've all thought that it would have, it should have by now. So it's only a matter of time before that announcement comes out, and then the game is really on. What's happening in the banks? Well, the banks are, of course, having a debt crisis now. As I reported earlier, the debt to GDP ratio is now 205% here in China. That is at near critical levels, and so banks are tightening. New RMB loans drop in April and May. They're trying to shore up their banks, and this is causing problems with the housing market, which we know is in a bubble, and housing prices continue to climb. But liquidity is now backing off, and more families purchasing a house. It becomes just house slaves. It becomes really an issue of not being able to pay for the house, or paying your whole life for the house, and the prices are way overbought. And we'll see more information on this in the coming years. Cartoon of the day, here it is. 31-month high. That is a pun at the Western Dow Jones Industrial Average, when the bulls fly, and there's the bear looking up at the bull market going so high, wondering when it'll come back down. And as we all know, with higher amounts of inflation, sometimes that goes into asset classes and boosts them up beyond what we expect them to be. So the stock market is overbought, and it's only a matter of time before there's a correction. So as always, get in gold and silver, and do not buy into the hype. The middle class trap in China. Now here's a very insightful article about a middle class family in Beijing and what they're making. The man in the article is an IT engineer. He makes a good salary in China, and he still is struggling somewhat, because he's got to buy a overvalued house, has to pay for expensive education for his son, and in Beijing, parking license and fees for driving is always higher than what it should be. So the middle class trap, trying to improve their lifestyle with rising consumer prices and a slowdown in the Chinese economy. Is a photo of Mao Zedong taken by his wife, and recently went up at auction and sold for a record $55,300 US equivalent. So we can see that more and more people getting into art and other type of assets that will gain in value against the rising inflation. And we're going to see more stories like this of gold and silver purchases, diamonds, art, anything to get out of fiat. And that is happening all over the world, by the way. Okay, so the job front. Moving overseas, a job remedy for nurses. Growing demand for healthcare professionals in China because of the aging population. A number of registered nurses in the mainland has increased, but it's still not enough. So that's one area where the Chinese economy will have rapid growth, regardless of what the overall economy does, is in healthcare and senior citizen related businesses. One area that is often overlooked, but is a cash cow. Lots of old people. So, what about food? Well, recent scandal here. Guangzhou finds cadmium-tainted rice. This rice was found in large cadmium in large amounts in Guangzhou, and it's prompting an outcry from people who do not want to eat any type of tainted or GMO food, but that's already happened. Super Rice, China draw for the 2015 Milan Expo. They've made a super strain of GMO rice that they've been using for quite a while here in China, and they're able to get super high yields for it. But again, GMOs are not healthy. They reduce the quality of life because of the health effects. And here's another story right here. Fake mutton racket closed. A big scandal here in the Shanghai Delta area. More than 900 people arrested for selling rat meat and cat meat as barbecue and labeling it as being lamb or mutton, with spices and other flavoring and chemicals and mixing of meats. They can get even stray cats and produce barbecue and sell them as real. So street food here is a risky area. You don't want to get involved with eating a lot of street food or from small restaurants unless you exactly know what they're making, because rat meat, despite what some people here might think, is not healthy for you. And related to that barbecue story, this news report was an outrage, absolutely absurd. When I read it, I couldn't believe it. The UN Food and Agricultural Organization claims that to protect the environment and to solve the worldwide food crisis and reduce hunger, that more and more people should be eating insects as part of their diet. Now, this story here has a lot more significance in China, because in the south of China, in Indochina, a lot of people still today eat a lot of insects as part of their diet. It's part of the culture. Here's a photo here of a young lady eating a stick of barbecued scorpions. But to suggest that the world should be eating more insects by the UN elitists, while meanwhile they eat filet mignon and prime rib followed by creme brulee, is ridiculous. There's a lot of good farmland out there that's not being using to its full capacity. Speculators draw up raw commodity prices and inflate prices of food that we use. Governments of the world, they have a lot of real estate that they will not allow to be used for either energy exploration or food production, and yet we're all being dumbed down and brainwashed with this nonsense of having to eat insects when we could be growing and producing our own foods on organic farms, if the governments of the world would be favorable to that with either low taxes or subsidies. But we don't see that. We see this nonsense. And finally, the story of Nangfu Springs, which is the largest producer of water in China. It's supposed to be one of the honored or high quality Chinese brands. Well, it was found through several tests across China that the Nangfu Springs bottled water actually has lower quality standards than tap water. This is really surprising that it took this long to find that out, and really quite disgusting, because the tap water in China comes from the rivers and lakes. The municipal water comes from those places, and here in the Shanghai River Delta area, those rivers and lakes, those streams have heavy pollutants in it from all the factories. In fact, there have been several stories where people have thrown cigarette butts off from bridges near rivers or streams and had the water become flammable, on fire, because of all the chemicals in the water. And that water is higher quality in testing than the Nangfu Springs bottled water, which is supposed to be the top brand. Really raises a lot of concern, because I know a lot of people drink the water. When I first got to China, I was told that you can trust this water and you can drink this water, and it's a good brand. It's a little sweet. And ever since then, I wasn't 100% sure, but now it's confirmed. In fact, many people became sick after drinking the water over several years, only to find that it is, in fact, almost undrinkable. If you're going to be in China a long time, whether it's travel or to work or anything like that, many of you would want to get imported water, but imported bottled water is very expensive in China because of the duty taxes. However, there is one brand of water that I have used that actually you can trust somewhat. It's from Nestle. They make a water here called Deep Spring, and this drinking water, this bottled water, is 100% mineral water, and it's from the west of China, Panshan area, and it's the only water of the major brands, bottled water, that they guarantee the source. They guarantee that it's pulled from the source deep in the earth, and it is quite good. And it is a little more expensive. You'll pay about up to 3 yuan per bottle, compared to 1.5 to 2 yuan for the other domestic bottled water, but it's probably the safest bet that you're going to have here in China. So that's all for China news for May 2013.